Pero si Mimil Chirega,
Batanta.
bebe, hukul Shlari Kape, Ixcanul.
Ixcanul is a directorial debut of Jairo Bustamante, which follows a teenage Mayan girl named Maria, who lives with her family in a small village by the edge of a volcano. Like the active volcano, Maria is hot blooded, suppressing her desires for sex and daydreaming to break free from the dormancy of her life. There, her life is planned out for her. She's set to marry an older, wealthier man named Ignacio, but her heart is somewhere else. She wants to run away with Pepe, another farmer, and follow him to the United States. However, everything changes when she accidentally gets pregnant by Pepe, who tells her she cannot get pregnant the first time they have sex. The film is based on a true story. Jairo Bustamante asked a real Maria if he could share her story, and she agreed because it isn't just her story, but that of many women in Guatemala. Ixcanul focuses on Mayan Guatemalans specifically, which are underrepresented in the media. It portrays their daily life in rural Guatemala, their language, and their systematic issues, such as the lack of access to resources in their language and the kidnapping of Maria's baby. Ixcanul juxtaposes the beauty of rural Guatemala with the exploitation of indigenous women. The film aims to portray Maria's story, which in her own words is the narrative of many other Guatemalan women, giving them a voice and a platform for their issues and experiences to be represented. Ixcanul is a story about women's struggles, their silencing, and their fight for autonomy. Ixcanul's strongest directorial decision is to have most of the indigenous cast speak Caquichel, the language of the Mayan people of the same name. The film was the first to be commercially released in Caquichel and earned international accolades. The film's director, Jairo Bustamante, who comes from the Caquichel-speaking town of Panajachel, has stated that this decision was to portray Caquichel as just another language and not the language of the Indians, which is an insult here. Many of the depictions of Caquichel Mayan life now shows how their traditional ways of life have incorporated and synchronized many of the European customs and beliefs into their life, but in their own interpretation, such as offerings for the spirits, including the Christian Trinity, foreign languages, and names being translated through Spanish. For example, the words that the Caquichel speaking characters used for the United States and English are Spanish words incorporated into their languages. Another major factor in the film is how the main characters interact with the wider Spanish speaking country around them. Explore through how Maria's parents, in order to speak to anyone from the government or to the doctors in the cities, they have to go through a translator who, like Ignacio in the film, may have their own interests at heart when translating. Many of these indigenous populations face many economic challenges, as shown in the film through Maria's family and their precarious position on the plantation and Pepe's cycle of debt to the company bar. Compounding these challenges is the history of discrimination and violence against indigenous communities in Central America, continuing the tradition of anti indigenous violence that began by the Spanish conquistadors. The government of Guatemala committed genocide against the Maya people of Guatemala during the Civil War of 1960 to 1996. This silent Holocaust killed over 100,000 Mayan people, subjected any who survived to incalculable violence, and wiped out entire villages of innocent Mayans. Due to these hardships, as well as promises of a better future, many people from Guatemala and similar communities in El Salvador, Honduras, and Belize have begun to attempt the dangerous trek through Mexico to the United States with no guarantee of a life on the other side. As mentioned earlier, Ixcanul is ultimately a story about women's daily struggles, their silencing, and their fight for autonomy. One of the strongest themes in Ixcanul is how gender, tradition, and poverty shape Maria's life. One scene that really stands out is when Maria's family tells her she will marry Ignacio. At first, it may seem like they're just following tradition, but the film shows viewers that it's much more complicated than that. Ignacio is the plantation foreman, and if Maria marries him, it would offer her and her family financial stability. This scene shows that her future is shaped not only by tradition or gender expectations, but also by poverty and survival. The thing is, Maria dreams of something different. As shown through her relationship with Pepe, she hopes to leave the mountain and create a new life. She sees him as a chance to escape and have more control of her own life. Even though that dream doesn't turn out the way she hoped, it shows how badly she wants the freedom to make her own choices instead of having them decided for her. Maria's relationship with her mother Juana is also really important. Juana might come off as controlling at times, but it's because she's been living under the same traditions and limitations. She tries to protect Maria the only way she knows how to, and the film reminds viewers that women can pass down traditions while also still being affected by those same traditions. Finally, the volcano is one of the film's strongest symbols. It's always there in the background, quiet but still powerful. And Maria is a lot like the volcano. She may seem quiet on the outside, but underneath she's carrying hope, frustration, and a desire for a different life. The volcano is a reflection of the strength that's been there all along, even if the people around her don't recognize it. Through those moments, Ixcanul shows gender, tradition, and poverty all work together to shape Maria's life and limit the choices that she is able to make for herself.
Ixcanul is a film that centers the characters' relationships and emotions. Throughout the film, the audience will question Maria's autonomy, Pepe's and Ignacio's intentions, Maria's parents' desires, and the role of government in their lives. The film does not exist to dehumanize or discredit the lives of Mayan people. Instead, viewers empathize with their circumstances and learn to understand their lives in different moments throughout the film. This is best seen in the song Pearl by Sade, a song that reminds you that there is someone out there with the same dreams and goals as you, but unable to accomplish them due to their circumstances. Ixcanul and Pearl have a similar premise, where we are reminded that there is someone exactly like us out there, but not with the same privileges or circumstances as us. The film Ixcanul reminds us that Maria is still a person with her own dreams and feelings, just like the girl in the song Pearl by Sade. The story of Maria exists through the lives of Guatemalan women who have been silenced and ignored. It is a story about women's lives and their daily battles with societal pressures, systemic oppression, and poverty. It is a story about survival and resilience when these battles occur within their lives. Jaro Bustamante sought to share Ixcanul with diverse communities around the world, reaching viewers in London to the homeland Guatemala. Jaro Bustamante said it best: Ixcanul is not a film about indigenous culture, but one that was developed from within it.